Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the English Learning Podcast. I'm your host, Bill.
And I'm your co-host, Sarah. We're so excited to have you here with us today.
Absolutely. In today's episode, we're going to talk about two of the most essential skills for mastering any language: listening and speaking.
That's right, Bill. Whether you're a beginner trying to understand basic conversations or an advanced learner aiming for fluency, your listening and speaking skills are crucial.
Exactly. But let's be honest, Sarah. Many English learners struggle with these skills. They understand grammar, they know a lot of vocabulary, but when it comes to understanding native speakers or speaking fluently, they feel stuck.
Yes, and that can be so frustrating. But don't worry, because in this episode, we're going to help you overcome these challenges. We will share practical tips, proven techniques, and powerful exercises that you can use to boost your listening and speaking abilities.
And the best part? These techniques are simple, effective, and you can start using them right away.
So whether you want to understand English movies, have smooth conversations, or speak with confidence, you're in the right place.
Let's get started. So, Sarah, before we dive into advanced tips, let's talk about the basics. Why are listening and speaking skills so important for English learners?
Great question, Bill. Listening is how we receive information, and speaking is how we express ourselves. Without strong listening skills, it's difficult to understand native speakers, and without good speaking skills, it's hard to communicate our thoughts clearly.
Exactly. And I've noticed that many learners focus a lot on grammar and vocabulary, but struggle when they actually need to understand someone or speak fluently.
Absolutely. That's because grammar is like the building blocks of a language, but listening and speaking are how you actually use those blocks to build conversations.
Well said, Sarah. Now, what do you think are the most common problems learners face with listening?
I would say the biggest issues are not understanding fast speech, unfamiliar accents, and not knowing enough vocabulary.
That's true. And for speaking, I've seen that fear of making mistakes and lack of confidence are the biggest challenges.
Exactly. Learners often hesitate because they worry about being judged or not speaking perfectly. True, and that's why focusing on communication instead of perfection is the key.
Absolutely. In this episode, we will not only discuss these challenges, but also share practical solutions to overcome them.
Absolutely. In this episode, we will not only discuss these challenges, but also share practical solutions to overcome them.
Stay tuned. We're just getting started. All right, Sarah. Now that we understand the importance of listening skills, let's talk about how we can actually improve them. What's the first technique you recommend?
The first and most important technique is focused listening. This means paying full attention to what you're listening to without any distractions.
Absolutely. So, for our listeners, that means no scrolling through your phone, no multitasking. Just listen carefully.
Exactly. And here's a simple exercise. Choose an English audio clip, maybe a podcast or a short video. Listen to it without looking at the subtitles first. Try to understand the main idea.
That's a great tip. Another technique is listening for keywords. Sometimes you don't need to understand every single word, but if you can catch the main keywords, you will understand the message.
Yes, that's so important. And speaking of keywords, I recommend learners take notes while listening. Just jot down the main words or phrases you hear.
Perfect. And what about context clues, Sarah? How can learners use them?
Great point. Context clues are hints in the audio that help you understand new words. For example, if someone says, "I feel exhausted after running a marathon," even if you don't know the word exhausted, you can guess it means very tired.
Very smart. And another powerful technique is shadowing. You listen to a sentence and then immediately repeat it, trying to copy the speaker's pronunciation and intonation.
Yes, shadowing is fantastic for both listening and speaking. It helps you get used to natural English sounds.
These are all amazing techniques, Sarah. And the best part is that they can be practiced with any English audio, songs, podcasts, movies, or even this podcast.
Absolutely. So, dear listeners, remember to practice focused listening, take notes, use context clues, and try shadowing.
That's right. And don't worry if you don't understand everything at first. Improvement takes time.
Exactly. Just keep practicing.
All right, Sarah, we've talked about listening, but now let's focus on speaking skills. Why is speaking so challenging for many learners?
Great question, Bill. I think the main reasons are fear of making mistakes, lack of confidence, and not knowing enough words.
Absolutely. But the good news is that speaking is a skill, and like any skill, it can be developed with practice.
Exactly. One of the best ways to improve speaking is to start with short, simple sentences and gradually move to more complex ones.
That's a great tip. And I also recommend learners practice thinking in English. Instead of translating from their native language, they should try to directly form thoughts in English.
Yes, and another effective technique is to talk to yourself. It may sound funny, but it really works. Describe what you're doing, your plans, or even practice a short dialogue.
Brilliant. And for pronunciation, I always suggest shadowing. Listen to native speakers and try to mimic their sounds, intonation, and rhythm.
Absolutely. And don't forget to record yourself. Listening to your own voice helps you spot mistakes and improve.
Finally, don't worry about making mistakes. Mistakes are part of learning.
Exactly. The more you speak, the better you get. So be brave and keep speaking.
So, Sarah, now that we've covered both listening and speaking skills individually, let's talk about how to combine them effectively. How can learners improve both at the same time?
Great question, Bill. One of the best ways to combine listening and speaking is through interactive practice. For example, you could listen to a podcast, then pause and repeat what you heard. This allows you to focus on pronunciation and rhythm while reinforcing what you've just listened to.
That's a fantastic exercise. Another way is to engage in shadowing. This involves listening to a native speaker, mimicking their speech immediately, and trying to keep up with the flow. It's great for both improving listening comprehension and speaking fluency.
Exactly. And I love the idea of using English subtitles when watching videos or movies. You can follow along with the text while also hearing the words. It helps you connect the written and spoken forms of the language.
Yes, and one of the most valuable ways to combine these skills is by practicing with a language partner. You can listen to their responses and practice speaking back. This gives you real-time feedback, which is key to improvement.
Absolutely. And let's not forget about using real-life scenarios. You can listen to someone speaking, then try to respond as if you were part of the conversation. This is great for building both confidence and fluency.
Great tips, Sarah. And remember, the goal is to practice consistently. The more you combine listening and speaking, the more natural it will feel.
Exactly. Immersion is key. Surround yourself with English, whether it's through podcasts, movies, conversations, or even reading out loud to yourself.
Well said, Sarah. And finally, for both skills, don't be afraid to make mistakes. Every mistake is an opportunity to learn and improve.
That's right. Keep challenging yourself and practicing, and you'll see progress before you know it.
Thanks for listening, everyone. Keep combining your listening and speaking practice, and you'll be well on your way to mastering both skills.
Until next time, keep practicing and keep learning.
Now, Sarah, we've covered a lot of techniques and tips for improving listening and speaking. But what about real-life practice? How can learners use these skills in everyday situations?
Great point, Bill. Real-life practice is crucial for building confidence and fluency. One of the best ways to practice is by finding language partners or speaking groups, either in person or online. There are plenty of language exchange platforms where you can connect with native speakers.
Absolutely. Engaging in real conversations is one of the fastest ways to improve. And it's not just about speaking with fluent speakers. Practice with anyone who's also learning, or even with friends who are willing to practice with you.
Another way is to immerse yourself in the language as much as possible. For example, watch English TV shows, listen to podcasts, or even read out loud. The more you expose yourself to the language, the more natural your listening and speaking will become. Another way is to immerse yourself in the language as much as possible. For example, watch English TV shows, listen to podcasts, or even read out loud. The more you expose yourself to the language, the more natural your listening and speaking will become. Exactly. Motivation is about recognizing your progress, no matter how small. So whether you're speaking for 5 minutes or listening to a whole podcast, it all adds up.
And always remember, language learning is a journey, not a race. Be patient with yourself and enjoy the process.
That's right. Stay consistent and you'll definitely see improvement. Keep pushing forward.
Well, that wraps up today's episode. Thank you for joining us, and we hope you feel inspired and motivated to keep working on your listening and speaking skills.
We'll see you next time. Keep practicing and keep learning.
And that brings us to the end of today's episode. We've covered a lot of ground on improving your listening and speaking skills, from techniques to real-life practice, and, of course, staying motivated.
Exactly. The key takeaway is that language learning is all about consistent practice and putting yourself out there. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Each one is a step forward.
Absolutely. And remember, there's no shortcut to fluency, but with dedication and the right strategies, you can reach your goals. Keep challenging yourself, and you'll see improvement over time.
We hope you found today's episode helpful. Keep practicing those listening and speaking skills, and don't forget to stay motivated.
Thanks for joining us today. Until next time, keep learning, stay consistent, and most importantly, have fun with the process.
Take care, everyone, and happy learning.